On this episode of the Wittering podcast, an interesting encounter with a car full of cokeheads.
I realised they were absolutely boshed on the Bolivian marching powder, at the very least. And they were like giving it and all this, you don't want to mess with us, you've already done it now, and all this sort of stuff.
Is the moon the only entity controlling the ocean tides?
There's a nodal point, there's an amphidronic point in the middle of the Pacific where there is no tidal amplitude. And, oh, by the way, these points are static.
And why do so many people prefer contentment to euphoria?
You don't need it to have anywhere to live. You don't need any food. You don't need a toilet. You need a bit of water occasionally. You don't need other people. And so he said it's just guaranteed contentment, and it's laughing.
Join us as we continue to ask the questions that will surely help us explain why we're all here.
How many varieties of avocado are there?
Welcome to the Wittering, episode 2.
Right, watcher, and welcome to the second episode of the Wittering podcast. And what is the purpose of the Wittering podcast? You may
Very
well
good
be
question.
asking yourself.
Very good question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Paul and I ask ourselves that a lot. And being this is just the second episode, hopefully it will become clearer. But as of today, right now, the general feeling is that the purpose of the podcast is to discuss topics that are relevant to humanity as we stumble like medicated sheep to the edge of the cliffs. And what will we find there? Will we find certain doom as we fall and our pelts and blood colour the waves red and fluffy? Or will we find the entrance to a ginormous and eternal water slide, which will whisk us away at Mach 37, my lucky number, to the next stage of our evolution and endless endorphin hits? Because, that's what it's all about. I feel that about sums it up at the minute, Paul. What do you think?
So our purpose, as you just described for this episode, is to benefit the future of humankind, despite its condition and regardless of which option it wishes to take. So the Jaggedy Cliffs mushy thing or the Mach 37 waterslide thing. That's in summary.
I think so.
That's quite a high bar, isn't it?
Potentially, but you got to aim high.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I have to say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the benefit of supporting the collective, i.e., humanity. I'm all for supporting individuals. That's cool. I'll just put it out there anyway. Is just this sort of reticence thing. Maybe it'll come up later on. Who knows? But fuck it. Let's see what happens.
Right. So you're saying not for the greater good, for kind of my good.
For the good of those, it's for the good of individuals.
Fine.
For the good of
individuals. I feel we should get this drummed out. I don't know if you've got a specific group of people who is better.
No, I was just thinking this idea of like the benefit of humanity. Like. Do we want to benefit humanity in this broader picture? Maybe, and it encompasses so much just terror, so much awful shit, and also maybe I'm getting a bit of stage fright because that is quite a high bar, isn't it? Like our discussion is going to benefit humanity as a collective rather than maybe just give someone a little bit of interest, a modicum of enjoyment to shake them out of their other mundane, desperate, miserable lives for the next 40 minutes, perhaps.
Okay, fine. Well, look, I mean, thank you, Paul. That's disarmingly erudite as ever. And we've already gone completely off script straight away, which is very good and inevitable, I feel. But I think I'm just going to introduce ourselves. Like, who are we? My name is Andy Crouch, and I'm quite old, to know better. But I quite often ignore that wisdom and get on and do whatever I feel like. Anyway, I've got an opinion about most things, opinions which I have to be honest, have to qualify our whether we are worth listening to. It normally develop these opinions through no more than, on average, about 6 minutes of moderate googling as my research. But I feel that that's normally adequate to grasp the general gist of things, and it's all a bit obvious anyway. And so that's me this week. And here's Paul, who may or may not tell us anything about himself, because after
Well,
all, he is.
this week, I'm happy to suggest that I'm wearing the flag of humanity. I'm one of the humanity that I'm
Okay.
that today. I think I spend probably a little bit too much time pondering, exploring what I think I know, which, as it turns out, is very little. So I'll be interested to feel your pills of wisdom.
Well, no, I think you
And
know a lot. I think you know a lot. So someone after the first podcast said you should be less self-defecating. Self-defecating.
me or you?
Me. But no,
Defecate.
self. What's the word?
Yeah,
Self-negating.
self-deprecating.
Deprecating. I said
Yes,
defecating.
you
Okay.
did say
So,
that. Yeah, but you
so,
do
so
that too, right?
yeah. Occasionally managed to get one of those out. But So, and we got, otherwise people won't listen if they think we're, not worth listening to. But anyway, let's get on. So, look, the next point of the whole of the approach on our podcast is: did anything exciting happen to you this week, Paul?
Well, I mean, we ventured all the way down to the delights of Bude.
Yes,
Met up with Andy in a really fine establishment called Rosie's.
Rosie's. Yeah, is that the first plug
Rosie.
for any commercial entity on this podcast?
I think so. I think so. And here's the thing: if you go to Rosie's and you are sitting there, you order the dirty fries. You have to do that, and don't be fooled by the rump steak. Which, by the way, the rump steak dirty fries are excellent, but they are not as exceptional as the dirty fries that Andy had. What did you have?
I can't remember. They changed the name since they used to be like filthy fries or dirty fries, but they've given it a slightly less filthy name now. But it's
Yeah,
basically fries with pulled pork on it and some sort of, it appears, some combination of barbecue sauce and hoisin sauce,
and you had
jalapenos, cheese, and salami.
exactly. How could you go wrong?
You can't. You can just,
Why didn't I make better choices?
I
You
obviously
know,
didn't sell it well enough to you, but
well, it's
you were
not
trying to be healthy or
that.
something.
Don't appreciate you falling on your sword on my behalf, but don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. This was entirely my choice, and I was looking at the menu. Anyway, there we go. So that was the thing I did this week, and
It was lovely to see you guys.
been a quite a brutal week. Traveling, clients and things like this. But yeah, it's been good. Anything that's really got under my skin? No, not really. No, it's been all right. It's been
No,
all right.
good.
You?
Okay, good. Okay, right. Well, look, I haven't got. I was going to say, seeing you in person, because we don't see each other in person that often. That's always a blast. So I've got another thing. It's not. I have to be honest. It didn't happen this week. It happened a few weeks ago. And it's. I don't know if I've told you. Have I told you about the white BMW?
No, you haven't told me about the white
Okay, fine.
BMW.
So right, here we go. So this was quite entertaining. So about 4 weekends ago, my wife and I, we went to the one of the best restaurants in Bude, called the Temple. It's very lovely, on Saturday night, and we left about 10:30. And I was driving, so I'd only had, what's it called, kombucha. I had a nice few kombuchas, so I was fairly sober. And as we were crossing the road to our car on the sort of the main road in the centre of town, further down, about 300 meters away, just this blast of high performance engine came, and this white Beamer just screamed up the road towards us. And my wife had made it across, and I was just kind of in the middle of the road, and it didn't slow down, and it just went right past me. Okay, it was safe, safe enough, but it's a bit out of order. So
Did
I
it go
let
right
him know.
past you? Did it go right past you, just behind you, or just in front of you?
I was walking. It kind of went, because I kind of stopped. I was walking away from the road that it went past, and I stopped and turned around, to
Right.
make
Oh,
it
okay,
clear
gotcha.
that I was unimpressed. And then I said something along the words of, "So the fuck down." I mean, I doubt they heard or something, but they did. They must have seen me, because I was right up in the cars as it went, and then they slammed the anchors on. It skidded to a halt. Now the scene is like 10:30. It's dark. It's the centre of Bude, so there's this sort of triangle, which is like a sort of centre park. It's very small, and
So is that on goes up a hill, right?
yeah, it's where they're like during the storms. One of the big tree got blown down, so it was on national news for. So that part there, so where the tree was, that's where I was standing. They threw their anchors on, and you know, and I was like, all right then, because I've got quite a healthy, I believe, approach to risk, and I like a little bit of adventure. And then I was like, so I started walking up towards the car, and Alice, who'd had a few drinks, um, was somewhere behind me. I think she was just waiting to see what happened. And I was walking up to the car thinking, oh, this will be a bit of fun. We'll have a chat. And then the door opened, the driver's door opened, and this dude got out. He's probably, I don't know, about 30. He was quite a big lad, not as tall as me, but quite wide. And then he immediately started spitting at me, and not physically spitting, but going, mate, what the fuck? Who the fuck? You bloody, you can't. What's the problem? And I was like, okay. And then then the other passenger door opened. Another big lad got out, and then one of the back doors opened close to me, and this tiny little rat-looking dude. And they all started having a go at me, started coming up. Then I was like, right, okay, are we on or not? But the first guy, he stopped. He came towards me, but he stopped the sort of space where it's not going to kick off immediately. Just so you can have a good old go. So he was going at me, and he was going, what do you think you're doing? I say, I called you a fucking idiot, mate. You can't drive like that in the middle of the town. Who do you think you're doing? He's like, oh, don't tell me this. And very quickly, because I read certain books about it, I realised they were absolutely boshed on the Bolivian marching powder at the very least, and they were like giving it and all this. You don't want to mess with us. You've already done it now, and all this sort of stuff. And I was just like, I can't remember exactly what we said about it, but I wasn't backing down. I was just saying, you fucking idiots. You can't drive like that. It's a nice car. I like cars. I've got a stupid car like this, but I don't drive like that in the middle of town. Do it out of town, you idiot. No, because blah, blah, blah. And I didn't back down. There's lots of eye contact. And then he went through this. The lead guy, the little rat guy, was just. I had a plan. As if it went wrong, I was just going to like kick the door in his face. That would have been even if I got this shit kicked out of me after that, I would have been very satisfied. But I had a plan for the rest of it, whether or not it would have worked. And then the lead guy was quite interesting. He went through a sort of like almost an apologist phase where he didn't go, I'm sorry, but he was like, that's my new car. I just bought it. I want to see what I want to do. And I was like, yeah, it's a nice fucking car. You don't do it in town. Fucking speed bumps everywhere. You're going to knacker your coilovers. And it was on anyway. And then he got wild again, got in and all this sort of stuff. And then they were like, and it was all sort of, they were, oh, fuck you, mate. Oh, fuck you. I better not see you around. I was like, oh, all right, well, not going anywhere. And then he got in the car, and as I was just going to look round at their license plate, I got the first 4 digits, Foxtrot Yankee 15, I think. I suddenly realised that my wife was coming up behind me. Now, my wife you've met her, she's like 6 foot, she's basically 6'2". She says she's 6'1.5", so it makes me a bit taller than her, which makes me feel good about myself. But she's also slightly trained in martial arts. And also, she was brought up with a brother who used to be a pain in the arse, so she could give it out. So I was like, oh God, no, if Alice gets into it, because she's had a few drinks and she doesn't back down. So I didn't get the back end of the license plate, which will become relevant in a minute. And then they just got in the car, fuck you, mate, and then melted up the road again, up the town. I was like, oh, that's quite.
You've never seen this Beamer before.
No, that's a good point, man. It's a small town Bude. I've been there for 25 years. I used to be the video shop manager. Well, I used to work in a video shop, not the manager. Sorry, Gary. And
don't overblow your position. Don't overblow your status in Bude.
I was an underling. But
so you've never seen the Beamer before. You've never seen Big Guy before. You've never seen nondescript other guy before, the leader who melted into the background, and you certainly never saw rat face fuckboy before either.
Yeah, to be honest with you, the thing I used to say about Bude is even the bad boys there are quite nice. You know what I mean? It's not that bad.
Yeah.
So these guys were dicks, and then they melted off, and my wife was like, "Well, what's that all about?" I said, "Oh, just dicks, bit too much sniff and whatnot." And we were walking back to the car, and then this like Ford Escort pulled up, and we'd had a conversation for like 3 minutes, and this Ford Escort pulled up, and this guy wound down the window, and he was like, were you just talking to those guys in the car?" I was like, "Yeah." You go, "I'm really sorry." I was like, are you there, mate? And he was like, "Yeah, I'm really sorry. I said, "Don't worry about it, man. It's what, just maybe you want to look after them because I'm not sure they're not going to end up wrapped around a lamppost." Okay. He was like, I'm sorry. He wound up his window and drove off. And I was, that's more.
Have you ever seen that guy before?
He looks a little bit familiar, but I don't pay much attention. So anyway, Alice and I got in the car, and then this triangle thing in the middle, you drive round it, and we had to drive round it 2 sides or 3 sides of it in order to go the direction we wanted. As we drove round it, we went past the taxi rank, and I saw one of my mates say he was a taxi driver. And as I drove past, I was like, "Hello, Rob." And then I was like, "Hang on, there's a copper there." Now, the distance between where I was shouting and shouting at is probably 13 meters of fairly open space. So everyone would heard it. And so I was like, "Hang on." And then I drove along and I drove back round. And Alice said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, there's a copper there." So I pulled up. I went, "Evening, Rob." He went, "Hello." I said, "So did you hear any of that to the copper?" And he was like, yeah. I said, "At any point were you going to come over?" Because there was physical threat. There was 3 of these dick bags
So
with
at
me.
any point were you going to, I don't know, protect and serve, or
Yeah.
do we not do that anymore?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
mean, we could have done it together if things went wrong, and we, at least it would have been a story to tell. And he was, "Oh no, I was just coming over, and
Was he?
and
Was he?
yeah," and
Maybe he
I
met
was
his
like,
quota
"Okay."
for the month.
Say again.
Maybe he met his quota for the month, and he was
Maybe.
like,
No, look, I had to say I like coppers. Most of them, there's dicks everywhere you look, but it's not a job I'd like to do, and so good luck to him. But I was just a little bit like, you come to Bude, in my head, you come to Bude as a copper, and you join up as a copper, you must have a similar risk profile, and going to Bude is like quite a sleepy place. So if you get a little bit of kick off like that, especially with quite a big lad who's already having a go, like you could go and we could work together to make society a better place.
indeed,
And
benefit humanity.
but exactly. See, well done, mate. Yes. And then I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." And he goes, "Did you get the license plate?" And I go, "No, I only got the first bit of it." And he was like, "Okay, we'll wait here in case he comes round again." I was like, "All right, you wait here. If he comes round again, what are you going to do?" But anyway, and then we went home.
Exactly.
And, yeah, we went home. But it was in my fairly, I wouldn't say boring, but quite placid life I have now. In little moments like that, little opportunities like that, I often find myself running towards. Um, and at the time, afterwards, Alice said, "Weren't you scared?" And I was like, I think when I was younger, I've been in situations like that when I was younger, I'd be a little bit shit in it. My adrenaline would be up and all this. My adrenaline wasn't really up there. And I remember thinking quietly in my head, these guys are trying to be scary. And I was like, they're not scary at all. I mean, they could probably beat the shit out of me, but I'm not scared of them. Because, I've met some scary people, properly scary people, and they don't behave like this, and they're just very quiet normally. And there's
Right.
a looming air of threat that they could kill everyone in the room if they wanted to. So yeah, that was I mean that was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, but that was that was my little story.
That's a fascinating story.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm
Okay.
interested about how you're how yeah, and you didn't feel when it all happened, you didn't sort of get any of this sort of adrenaline rush or any of this sort of you
I,
know.
I think I got a bit, but not normally. The sort of hit I get when I have a near death experience in the car. Someone pulls out on you and you're doing legal limit, and you have to do something quite, something like that. Then you get I anyway get a massive, I presume, adrenaline or ephedrine or whatever it might be, adrenaline hit, and you're a bit shaky and it's got to wear off and burn itself off and that sort of stuff. I didn't get that. I was kind of quite heightened. I was quite bouncy and I was like a bit alert. I kept talking about it. Alice was just, "Please shut up about it," after about an hour. Because it was fun. I found it fun, and not in as I'm not trying to be a try-hard dickhead, because I'm
Yeah.
very aware of the fact that I could have been beaten, and or stabbed or whatever. But I'm 47 and I've been in situations like that before. So and my math really gets me into
The
them.
fact that you found it fun, does that concern you at all?
No,
Or
not
uh,
at
uh,
all. Good
no,
God,
no, not at all.
no,
Not at
good
all.
God, no. I've always considered uh, it a good thing to have adventure. And it's the same old thing. Life is short, and all this. You've got to crack on,
Yeah.
and it actually,
I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? It's like different. So the stress response, that fight, flight, freeze response, um, is the same regardless of where the stress comes from, where the stressor comes from. Whether it's
Mm,
a physical, emotional, chemical thing. So regardless of whether it's I don't know, getting a massive getting a massive bill land on your doorstep when you open it up, right? Or
Yeah.
whether it's like it kicking off in a pub,
Yeah.
or getting run over, or blah, whatever. It doesn't matter what the initiator is. The mechanism, the biological pathway, the mechanism that occurs inside is the same.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's interesting that this part about it kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the stress is. It's all about the impact, how that stress is processed for you, and where it sits within your register of things.
Okay.
And so for example, that instance for you, I would have fucking hated it, you know.
Yeah.
And likewise, a friend of mine, he does loads of stuff with property and things like this, and he's always like, juggling mortgages and this and that, and
Yeah.
everything's all seat of the pants stuff. And I go, oh my god, I just
Yeah.
couldn't deal with that at all. And
Yeah.
yet, the things that I kind of I enjoy, the stresses that I enjoy, I know other people can't,
No.
and it would just like melt their heads. And
Yeah.
it's fast. I find it really, really interesting because the mechanism's the same. But the sort of the pathway to get me to that mechanism is obviously is I guess has obviously been well worn by our history and everything else that happened in our subconscious.
Are you talking personally, like nurture sort of thing?
Yeah. No, yeah. I guess. Yeah. Our nurture, I guess furrows certain responses, and some of those. And for you, this is that response, and for me, my response to the same situation would have been awful, and and yet the same mechanisms at play.
Yeah.
It's just how we process it.
Yeah. It is very interesting. Yeah. Right. Anyway, enough of that old bollocks. And so what happens next in the podcast normally is that we have, well, I say normally.
Of course, we're still on the what happened.
Yeah. What
How's it
happened this
been
week?
going for us? Sorry, yes, I
No,
was
no,
so
you're right.
drawn into your near feudal pugilism that I,
Brilliant. I love that.
I
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, look. So now we should both have some subjects that may be interesting for us to talk to each other about.
Yeah,
Have you got a list?
I don't have a list because I thought
Have you
that was
got
your. I
have
thought
you
that's
got
what you were going to do.
No. What? No. Do you have a bullet point?
I do have something. I do have something that I find that I've stumbled across that I'm quite intrigued by.
Go on then.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, so
What have
I'm
you got?
kicking off, am I?
Well,
Smart.
who cares? It doesn't matter. I've just had a good old rant now, haven't I?
So, do you know what an amphidronic point is?
Well, obviously I don't. And how did did it start with an A? Amphidronic. Okay, no, I can't even. I studied Latin not very well, but I can't even think of any of those any components of that word that might mean anything to me. Do you know what it is? Are we going to find out? Have you just learnt
Yeah.
the word?
So uh, what is your this? Here's something that I quite like doing. Right
Go on.
in my closeted spare time. Um, I like taking a concept that I think I understand and I think I know about.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll sit down and I might write it down, but more often than not, I'll just paint a picture in my mind which
Okay.
says something like, what do I think happened in this situation, or what do I know about the Titanic sinking? What do I know
Okay.
about the Titanic, right? As an
Yeah.
example, and I
Yeah.
sit there and go, oh, that's quite straightforward. Well, Leonardo DiCaprio and oh, fine. No, it's quite straightforward. This is what happened. Succinctly put it in my mind. Bang, build this picture. Right? And I go,
Yeah.
right, go and find out if all the evidence, how fast can you start to unpick and challenge the notion of what I hold as the representation of that event,
Okay.
and
Why?
thus far, nothing has withstood a modicum of scrutiny.
6 minutes of googling, right? That's a sweet.
Yeah. 6 minutes. I mean, even you would start to rip it to pieces in about 45 seconds, probably, depending upon where you go to find your information, anyways, or whatever. So, yeah, and so I find it fascinating, and it's a really healthy. I find a really healthy exercise because what it starts to show me is it will, and I've been doing this for many years, is how uh, nebulous, how loose our belief
Fallacious.
system, quite possibly
Okay.
our belief system is based on what we know and what we've been told, and then also how much rigor have we gone through to really look into some of these things. And for the most part, it doesn't really matter, but certain things I find just fascinating. Anyway, so I did this the other day. I was thinking about the moon.
Okay.
I was thinking about, what is the moon? What is the moon? What's it doing there? Why is it? Why is it? Here's a seeming celestial body, and that is literally sitting in the vacuum of space. Okay, which
Yeah.
means that it's sitting in largely a frictionless environment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and yet it has zero rotation, none. It Because we only ever see the same face of the moon.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has it has zero. Just have a think about this, right?
But that it's
You Go on.
cool.
No, go on.
It's caught in the Earth's pool fundamentally.
No. Okay, so it's got rotation around the Earth, right? It's got
Yeah,
rotation around the Earth, but itself around its own axis, it has zero rotation.
because the Earth's axis is more important in effect, right? No.
No,
Oh.
that
Okay.
you okay. So based on this isn't even the point, but now we're starting to understand. No, look, this
To
hasn't even taken
understand
us
my
6 fucking minutes, has it?
say
Right?
again.
This is so. So if you ever done that, you ever been to these money grabbing places that defraud everybody their money, called the fun fair,
What's it going
right?
to be? Yeah, I
Okay,
fucking hate a fun fair. Every
yeah,
time
exactly.
something begins.
Have you ever done this thing where you've got to balance something on a lemon, balance a pound on a lemon,
No,
and the lemon's floating in water? Have you ever done that?
no, what?
Right,
No,
that's it.
ever.
If you can balance a £1 coin on a lemon that's floating in water, right?
Yeah,
If it stays there, you get a fiver. You know, costs you 50p to do it, or whatever it may well be. It was a
yeah.
lot of fun, and the thing is, as soon as you put something on there that's a tiny that if you it's not possible because it's essentially it's a almost frictionless system,
Okay.
in the thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So the
yeah.
moon is kind of that. It's a ball. So say it's a ball orbiting the Earth, has zero rotation about its own axis. Ignore its rotation around the Earth, right?
Okay,
Because
okay.
it's got zero rotation about its own axis. It's in a frictionless place. That on its own, I find utterly staggering. Even if there was a tiny force imbalance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It would slowly rotate. We would not have the Pink Floyd album, right? Because there wouldn't be a Dark Side of the Moon, right? Because
Yeah,
we would always see parts of it, even if it's rotating incredibly slowly. Anyway, some of the many anomalies about this structure that's the moon, but this is not even the point. The
okay.
point I was trying to make, or I want to get to, is the thought I want to get to is that think about the moon, think about it's there, and then all of a sudden go, what do I know about the moon? Oh, the moon is responsible for the tides.
Yeah,
Is that so? What do you think about that statement?
I think it's probably correct. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, why
But
not?
are you
That's what I've been
familiar?
told since I was born.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's a concept that I'm familiar with, right? So the position of the moon versus the position of the sun, then kind of corresponds to high and low tides and 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 uh, and the seven bore as an example, which if
The
for
what?
all of our international, the seven bore, is when there's alignment there, and you get this huge tide that's going against the outflow.
Oh,
You never
okay.
heard of this? Yeah. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, probably.
So
Okay.
yeah. So I'm thinking about the moon and the tides and the moon's tides and all this kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So what this means is that the moon essentially is the thing that generates the tides in us in our seas, in our
Yeah.
oceans.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So now I'm going, why hasn't the Mediterranean got a tide? So if you look at the Mediterranean, right, Mediterranean hasn't got a tidal range, right?
Not at
So
all.
you have waves, but the waves
Yeah.
are largely based on wind and boats and
Fetch and things.
stuff and whatever stuff. I think that's a meteorological term, stuff and things, right? But the key thing is that the Mediterranean doesn't have a tide, right? Now,
No.
if the tide is generated by the moon,
Yeah.
right, I would have thought that there would be some kind of tidal variation in a body of water that is that big.
It is
Now,
big, isn't it, really?
admittedly, whilst it's big, it's not as big as the oceans. So people would say, well, maybe it does have a tide, but it's so imperceptibly small that you
Yeah.
can't see it because of what have you. But then
Yeah.
I go, well, why is the Hudson, one of the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
why has the Hudson got a tidal range? And the Hudson's smaller than the Mediterranean. And the Hudson is cut off from the main oceans, much like essentially the Med is. I mean, it's got that
Yeah.
small little mouth at,
So it's a comparative body of water almost to the Mediterranean.
but it's smaller than the Mediterranean, and it has a tidal range. It has a
Yeah.
large tidal range, right?
Uh-huh.
So now I'm going, hang on a second. This idea that the moon generates tides from its pull, all of a sudden, just in terms of that, is like, well, explain why the Med hasn't got a tidal range. Well, it's too small. It's like, well, why does the Hudson have a tidal range and that's smaller than the Med? It's like, oh, shut up, just go away, just leave me alone, type of
Okay.
thing. Oh, and then next minute, I've whatever, I've got to talk about the Twin Towers or something because I'm one of these nutters, not nutters, whatever. Anyway, story for another time. But so I'm sort of looking at this and going, that's absolutely fascinating. It gets even better. So the amphidronic points are points around the world that have zero tidal amplitude. Okay. And these points are actually are on coasts, are in bodies of water. You can actually look up the amphidronic map. Okay, they're called nodal points, and they're dotted around. There's quite a lot of them around the Arctic. There's quite a lot of them around the Cape of Good Hope, and there's some actually planted right in the middle of the oceans. So let's just have a think about this, right?
Yeah, cool.
There's a nodal point. There's an amphidronic point in the middle of the Pacific, where there is no tidal amplitude. And oh, by the way, these points are static; they don't move, right? They're there.
Okay.
There's also amphidronic points actually on coasts. So I mean, the Gulf is a classic example. Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
There are amphidronic points in the Gulf of Mexico where there's no tidal range, and yet it's attached to the Atlantic, essentially, same body of water, right?
I had no idea.
And then we get to this another point which I find fascinating, is that around each amphidronic point is you do get tidal movement, and those tidal movements circle the amphidronic point, and some circle the amphidronic point clockwise, and some circle the amphidronic point anti-clockwise. And these amphidronic points create these tidal systems, and you can see one which is in the Pacific, and then moves down to one just off of the coast of New Zealand, and it literally does a figure eight. Because they're these tidal maps, they're these animated tidal maps that actually take all of this geodata and overlay it in terms of time and things, so you can see this stuff happening. And if we come back to the Hudson, right? So if we come back to the Mediterranean has very few amphidronic points. It's got a couple. I think I saw maybe 3 or 4. Like one's up in the Adriatic, but the vast majority of that body, there isn't one. And yet in the Hudson, there are quite a few. And there are quite a few all dotted around the coast, but the amphidronic point is, or there are 2 actually. They're right in the middle of, almost sort of in the middle of the Hudson area. I think it's the Hudson. Forgive me if I got that wrong, but it's one of the Great Lakes.
Okay.
and literally so the tidal pattern circles these amphidronic points, and you get these big tidal ranges as a result of these points. So I'm led to this conclusion. The only conclusion I can come to is I've got no idea what's going on,
Yeah.
except for the fact that the model that the moon is responsible for tides is suspect at best. Because if it was, these points wouldn't exist. Because, I mean, just if you just take the Pacific on its own,
Yeah.
there's an amphidronic point in the Pacific. There is nothing in the body of water is continuous.
Yeah.
And yet at that point, there is zero tidal amplitude.
Well, I don't understand. Okay, so right, there's so many unknowns from my perspective. So you're saying
I'm not.
No, but the
Found.
I'm trying desperately to say. I'm going to put it up on the screen probably so people can learn.
Amphidronic, AMPHI-dronic.
Amphidronic. Yeah. Okay, the amphidronic points. Sorry, Paul. So around those amphidronic points, first of all, how big are they? And just to confirm, the second one, that's where there's no tidal movement in the
exactly
water
right. Yeah.
But didn't you just say then tides go currents around them?
Tidal ranges go around them, either clockwise or anti-clockwise.
So they stay at a stable water level above.
Yeah, and continuously they don't move. They don't move over time. They're there. They're always there.
I heard about these things. Okay, fine. So if you were to look at them, were you able to see if you were to look at them on the globe?
Yeah.
Was there any form of pattern in terms of if you drew lines between them, then they might intersect, or there was some sort of.
Well, interestingly, someone and I don't know. I didn't go much further than this, but someone has looked at energy lines and things like this,
like ley lines, sort of thing.
Yeah, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And they're seeing the amphidronic points are also nodes for those.
Really?
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating.
I do kind of believe, not really knowing what they are, I do kind of believe, and we talked a bit about belief last. Well, we started talking about belief. I kind of believe in ley lines. I don't know anything about them, apart from some sort of Celtic stories I read in Slane, 2000 AD. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
that's a historical reference text, isn't it?
Well, it was actually an historical, mythical. Well, I can't remember. I'm probably doing the Irish terrible. I'm probably going to get.
I'm glad you stopped yourself there. Historical and mythical are kind of diametrically opposed, aren't they?
Yeah, but they kind of cross over because look at the don't they? King Arthur down here, Tintagel, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a myth, isn't he? But he's also. Should we look at Jesus?
We'll save that for another. Let's save that for another thing. Right now, I'm talking about the moon, mate.
Yeah.
But I guess so. The fascinating thing on this side of things is that moon's responsible for the tide. Oh, thanks for that. See ya. I mean, there's no bearing really on me particularly because I can't change anything or whatever. But it's just, is it really okay? Well, let's go and do a bit. Let's go and have a tickle and let's see how we get drawn in. And so now what I know is that I'm now left with this amusement actually that all of the stuff that I thought I knew about that system, which at the end of the day is pretty low, pretty sparse in my knowledge based on that. But all of it is A, now suspect, and B, I'm very aware that there is there's a significantly more complex system going on.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like to me like the moon could still be affecting the tides, but is working in potentially conflict with the amphidronic points.
Maybe. I think certainly I'm not suggesting for 1 second that the moon does not have an effect, right? It may there is some kind of a synchronicity between the moon position and the tidal range.
Yeah.
But I think
maybe it's a correlation, not a causation.
Quite possibly. Nice one. That made you sound very highly intelligent.
Well, it's because I googled it.
But I think the other side, the other part of it is that there is something fundamentally now. I've got a massive quivering jelly question mark
Okay.
sitting over how oceans work,
Yeah.
because a body of water that's completely connected shouldn't have a single zero amplitude point that's always present and always there.
Yeah.
You know,
Y-
that is totally bizarre.
I feel like all my what would it be? Geography teachers, they've missed a real trick there to fascinate me. I mean, I was pretty fascinated by geography. I love OS maps, but by the way, all the oceans moving because of the moon, apart from these bits.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that because it makes my life too difficult. Because the last thing I want is I think this is a quote from the Rockefellers, is what we do not want a nation of thinkers.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they did all that stuff, we don't want a nation of thinkers. We just want a nation of doers. So learn to be an accountant, you fucker.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because I'm fascinated by what you've just told me, but you said it yourself. I think you did. I don't really care, because, and even though I know the tide does affect my life, I live by the beach, not in a major way does it affect my life. That however it works, it's not doing me any. I've got no problems with it. So and I guess
Let's take it
I'm not curious
let's take it to this level then. It's not so much the mechanism,
yeah.
right? It's the point that everyone tells you that this is how it works, and now we realize that no one has a clue.
Yeah, well, look, that's old news, isn't it? Surely that's old news. The example I always use when someone, no, I'm sorry, Alice, I'm going to use her for examples all the time on this platform. When a scientist comes to me and say, "But the science doesn't say that, Andrew," I go, "What? Have you any idea? First of all, how many scientific papers have been removed this year alone? It's like 10,000.
Right.
Anyway, that's it's gone crazy. The whole sort of academic mechanism's gone crazy. But the Earth is flat. People were killed, I think, painfully for saying, actually, no, I don't think you'll find it is. I think it's quite round. Well, not round, but spherical. Not even spherical, is it? It's a bit squishy. Anyway, and at that point, literally, we're going to go to war about it, or people will because the world is flat and science says so. And then I know. So I've always forever had the notion that what we're operating on as fact is at the very best temporary. So when I'm in certain sort of very regimented thought places, where people have systems, we have a process to innovate. Andy, are you following the process? Ah,
Yeah.
I can try.
Isn't it? I haven't got a problem with that concept. We have a process to innovate.
Yeah. So you know how you almost Anyway, so I love the notion of being disruptive and go, are you the subject matter expert? And they go, yeah. So how does it work? Oh, well, it works like this. I either say it or I go, you're probably wrong, or you could be wrong. And even if you're right, you're probably not going to be right for long, because so many things. I mean, there are constant basic truths to an extent, I suppose, in physics and maths or whatever, in thermodynamics and whatnot. But there are many other things I think are quite variable because humans are involved and our perception and is a bit wobbly. So I'm forever like, yeah, okay, that could be it. But I can't get too fret up about it because it's so potentially temporary. Our firm understanding about this subject.
Yeah, I find it very liberating. I find it fascinating, interesting, and liberating actually, because why do we have so many ivory towers of belief that it has to be like this? And you talk about the science says, actually it doesn't, because science is a method of inquiry, so it doesn't say fuck all. In actual fact, if it says anything, the most fundamental thing you need to realize is transient until something else comes along that modifies what science says. So don't going to put it out there as if this is like a law of whatever, that drives me nuts. But I think I find it a great exercise. Anyway, so that was my journey in that.
I really like that. I thank you very much for that and for that new word, amphidronic. Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep this one short. So because it's about that sort of, it was quite a pivotal moment for me. I think everyone should hear this because it might be useful. I was I went to a religious school. I was never that religious, but then I kind of figured out it was all a crock of shit. Okay, in my opinion. And then I was an atheist. Yay! And then I had wonderful conversations in pubs with anyone who's willing to listen or couldn't escape to talk about probabilities and blah blah blah. And then my
Is that when you were locking them in the loo?
yeah, or something like that. I was staying with my parents, and their next door neighbour, lovely. She was a lay preacher. I don't even really know what that is, but I think it's someone who's quite officially religious.
Stupid preacher, a preacher that preaches about nothing in particular,
Is that what?
or is it was she prone?
Right. So she was lovely. She was absolutely lovely. We got into the atheist thing. I was like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna, tear her piece off her with my amazing logic. And it turned out that she said, actually, Andy, a lot of your presumptions are actually incorrect. You should just need to, so politely, so lovely, you just need to do a bit of research on it. And she told me a few things to look at. This was a long time ago when I was even more naive than I am now. And I ended up getting on, it was the early days of the web. I got onto some sites, which were, what's it called? What's it called? The religious stuff that kind of joins science into theology. What's it called? Fuck it.
Creationism.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, I forget. And it was, and I was reading this, and I was going, "Oh my god!" And I remember I was driving from Bude down to Plymouth to a video shop I did used to manage, actually, one of those automated ones before Netflix.
Oh right.
Anyway, and I was driving down, and I was suddenly like, "Hang on, I know religion isn't right," and I suddenly thought, and then I now know that atheism is not logical from what and then I remember going around this roundabout, and then because suddenly my belief system was a complete vacuum, and I almost drove into a hedge because it was quite alarming. I was like, oh my god! After about 400 or 500 meters, I managed to not drive into a hedge, and I suddenly realized I've got this sort of vacuum hole in my belief system, but I'm okay with it. I don't need to know the answer because I used to know the answer was God, and then I was definitely not God, and it's and an evolution is, and then both at that point in time, obviously evolution is more likely in my mind, but at that point in time, both had been fully discounted, and I was left with nothing. And that was alarming. But then I really quickly came to terms with it, and it was really okay about it. I started remember saying to myself, well, I don't know what the answer is, but I bloody know what the answer isn't, and it's not
right
in Christianity, and it's not this. And from that point on, I've always had that very sort of relaxed surrender, if you will, about not being happy, not knowing what's really going on, as long as I'm all right, Jack, to an extent.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So what did you what? So what's your position now then? If you're not religious.
Oh, I'm an atheist. I mean, it's clear. I mean, I've always worked.
So what she said, and what you then subsequently investigated, and your epiphany of your kind of like your spiritual vacuum or awareness of your spiritual vacuous belief or whatever it may be, that nearly caused you to crash into a hedge, has resulted in you being an atheist.
Because basically the website material she sent me to was fallacious. I do like that word. But at the time I took it as read. I thought, oh, it was really well. It was a really good narrative, really put together. And I was like, oh, that sounds quite sciencey. And oh my god, that could be true. And oh my god, it is true. Vacuum almost hit the hedge. And then actually, I looked into the websites a bit, and that's total point. Oh my god, I'm such a dick. How easy, how gullible. And so that was quite a revelation as well. So. But yeah, so I'm an atheist. So I work on, I guess, the probability of what's more likely, as far as I'm aware of the available data. But there's a chap, Baxter, who's very, very clever and also very religious, and he's challenged my view on statistical likelihood because he knows about quantum physics and things like this, and that's something we'll have to discuss at some point. He sent me a white paper.
Maybe we can get him on the Wittering and discuss.
Absolutely. There's actually the first podcast channel I started was called Ask the Baxter, because his brain is peculiar. But that didn't work. Mum stopped watching it, so we lost our only listener.
Oh no! Why did she stop watching it?
I never asked her, actually.
Maybe we need to get that feedback to make sure that we don't make the same mistake.
Yeah, but the thing is, Paul, since the first episode, I've had a few people, like Mum and a few of her mates that she's made listen. I've received some feedback about aspects of it, and it's like anything. It's like you're designing a website or you're
Do you
writing
want to tell
something.
me, or
You can't keep everyone happy, and
no?
and that's not really in me to keep everyone happy, apart from my
Yeah,
nearest and dearest. So it's kind of like, well, fuck it, I don't care as long as we're having fun. And as
right.
long as we find it's worthwhile, and if one week it looks like this, and the other week it looks like that, then it's just a natural fluid
It
globular
is what it is.
evolution. So anyway, so look, we're coming up to the hour mark.
Wow,
I know it's flown by. I'm just gonna. Did you get that thing I sent you?
I did. Yes.
Okay, fine. So this is the only thing I had. I had my single bullet point was this, which I think are quite interesting, and so I'm going to talk about it. So what will happen when I click my fingers on the screen will appear a graph. Okay, it's not going to, Paul, but
No.
for us because I have to put it in post production. But have you got it there? Have you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. So let's forget how we said that. So ready? Right. So there's the graph there. So
yeah, yeah.
what happened? Hang on. Right, the graph's
Woo.
gone away again because I forgot. I've got to set the scene. I was at a very good friend's wedding the other day, a few weeks ago, and with my wife, and we were sitting at a table full of people didn't really know. That I'm actually getting to be one of the older people at weddings nowadays. And so sitting there with a bunch of people who didn't have kids and aren't married but are partnered up. And in the middle of the table, there's a document with the menu on, and just to let you know what you're eating. And on the back, there's a bunch of questions like. Each is six groups of six people on these tables. So there's six. One of the questions is there's six choices. Which one of you is going to be the rich? Is going to be a millionaire? Which one's going to be famous? Which one's going to do it? So you've got to discuss and say, well, I'm more likely to do this. And so it's a bit of an icebreaker and all this sort of stuff. So
Right.
we sat there. We didn't need it because we were, there was wine and
Well,
also
and there was you.
and I was going to say, but yeah, there was me. So that was cool. But then I said, oh, this is what the whole purpose of this is to do an icebreaker. And then I thought, you know what? Actually, I've got quite an interesting question I want to ask these people. And so I drew this graph. Ready? On the back of a napkin. And
Right.
then and so what you've got there, you've got time on the bottom, and then you've got states of mind, or I don't know, you could probably come up with a better term, state of being, state of condition. You've got euphoria, which is obviously blindingly good. Thank you very much. And you've got utter shite. If that stays there for too long, then find me a cliff. And then you've got contentment, which is sort of like the bit in the middle. So then I drew the two lines, the purple squiggly one, and then the green, far more sort of stable one. And then I said to each of these people, pass it round, and then write your name, and then say, do you want A or B? So A being the purple one, and B being the green one. And this is what do you want for your life? Do you want a stable level of contentment where there's no extremes of experience, or do you want the ups and downs? And everybody, apart from me, put the stable life.
Really?
Yeah, man. And I was like, okay. And then I said, all right, I was hoping for a bit more fireworkery than that. So I said, okay. So I said, all right.
You're all wrong.
Oh, yeah. Not yet. I didn't say that yet. But I said, what do you want for your kids? Do it again. And what would you want for your kids? Okay, because I was trying to probe a little bit. And everyone put contentment again. Okay. And I was like, oh my God. And I said, well, look, I've put the purple, okay, because you need the ups and downs to appreciate. That's fairly, everyone knows that little saying. You got to have the contrast, in order to understand where you are. And then I said, right, so about 20 years ago, one of my best mates was a highly functioning heroin addict. Okay, and he loved his brown, did a lot of it, and never lost a job. I think is what I mean by highly functioning. And I talked to him every now and then, and we got talking once. I said, I said, what's it like being a heroin addict? And he said, I get asked that question all the time. It's really quite annoying. And I said, go on then. Well, what's it like though? And he goes, basically, I describe it as GC, which stands for guaranteed contentment. And then he went on to say that as long as only one variable, okay, yes, you need water, but there's only one real variable. And if you've got a couple of bags of heroin, you're sorted. You are content. You don't need it to have anywhere to live. You don't need any food. don't need a toilet. You need a bit of water occasionally. You don't need other people. And so he said it's just guaranteed contentment, and it's laughing. Well, not laughing, but it's okay as long as you've got the heroin. And I took that and I was like, oh my god, that is really sad. I mean, I can see how it might be quite appealing, but ultimately it's pointless. I kind of felt. So then I told the people around the table that little story about my mate Dan, the heroin addict, and they were like, oh, equating their answers to a habit like that. And then one guy, he's a bit older actually, he's a cool dude actually, and he said, actually I used to be like the purple line, but I've got myself to the green line now. And he goes, if I think about it, and okay, and I say, I want for my kids, right, I want them to have the purple line, okay, because it's more fun. They may disagree with that, but I also want them to have the tools, because when I'm down at the bottom of the purple, I know so far from all previous precedent evidence it's temporary. And I've had enough time to go, oh my god, especially in the old days when bills would come in and I'd spent all my money on something. Oh my god, what's going to happen? And then 20 minutes later, I called the bank and given them a bit of a story, and they're like, yeah, go have some loan. I'm like, brilliant. And then I'm straight back out there. And it's, that was one of the examples of things that maybe that was so easy. I didn't need to get so wound up about it. But if you've got that experience, and then they've got the tools, as you either go proactively and get them from psychotherapist or reading books or having good mates or whatever that coping mechanisms may be, then you kind of it's not at the end of the world when the shit really hits the fan, from something you've done or just the universe reminding you were fairly relevant. But yeah, so that's my little thought for.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing, isn't it? I think the idea of that line, that the steady line, the contentment line,
guaranteed contentment. Well, yeah, contentment.
Guaranteed contentment. The idea of that line is a fallacy in that there will always be things to knock you off of that line.
Absolutely.
Divorce, death, job loss, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the idea that that's what I want to get to, actually, the thing that resonated with me when you were telling that story is, as you were saying when you talk about the heroin addicts, is guaranteed contentment. It's a guaranteed numbness. You've literally disconnected yourself. That's where the flat line comes in. Is because nothing's going to shake you from it, because you're so disconnected from everything else that's all it is. And I think your comment about wanting to have the tools, to surf the wave of life is what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it might, not on purpose, might bring back to the BMW story. Is that I'm actively looking for those. I so I'm going along. It was a lovely evening with my wife. It was fun. We had a little argument. Actually, we talked about it a lot of time. It was a fun argument, and it was quite. And then so we were buzzing as we came out, and then but I'm kind of like going on the contentment line here, and oh, dickheads in the Beamer. There's opportunity for either roof or shit, and that was a mistake, or maybe a bit of both. And so I was like, yes, please. And they stopped the car. I was like, yes, brilliant. We can get off the contentment line.
I think the other thing as well is to recognise that it sort of, let's call it happiness, is a vector quantity.
Okay.
What I mean by that is that you got positive, I'm happier, and you got negative, I am less happy. Or you could say sadness. So you've got so the concept of hot and cold. Right. Well, hot and cold, it's only hot because it's relative to what is cold.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So and likewise.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so therefore, if the one thing that you're trying to achieve is what we're trying to do is I don't want that. Actually, what people are actually saying is about actually what they want is they want their own amphidronic point of emotional contentment. Right? They're looking to crop and mitigate the amplitude of their emotional swing.
Oh, beautiful.
You know, and
Preach.
that's probably what they're saying is they don't want a flatline, because that's just, you just might as well check out. You have nothing.
You gotta, I think, and I tell the kids, you gotta love the suck, the crap, because it's still an emotion, or it's still an experience. You're still alive. It's easy to say, sitting, white middle class, in Cornwall by the beach, fucking easy to say. But I want the kids to have hard times, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
well, it's how you learn. You want, I think you want anybody that you care about. You want them to have the hard times supported in a way so that they can develop the emotional and physical resilience and tool set to equip themselves to move through it, to actually gain learning from that experience to move on. And
yeah,
that's actually where the happiness comes from. And actually,
yeah,
maybe if you turn that graph into a 3D plot, and
yeah,
so coming either out to or inward or whatever
yeah,
is the scale of I would say happiness, right? Because um, because I think you can be content but not really happy. You can be content but a little bit desperate.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
and so you could be sort of, you could be not necessarily utter shite, but you could be on that lower end of the curve, which kind of typically is like, stressful, lots of stuff going on, blah, blah, blah. But actually you could be enjoying the challenge,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and but you can only enjoy the challenge if you've got the tools and the support
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
draw on. And so your point being about, what you wish for your kids is you want them to have the hard times. Well, you want them to have the hard times provided they're supported in the right way, and I know they are. So yeah.
Well, so far, I mean, they might watch this in years to come and go, "Dad, you are a dick." I mean,
What have you
what on
done to me?
earth were
What have
you?
you done to me?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you'd
And
be
we're taking
watching
a
this in the
course.
therapist's office. If you are, guys, I must apologise. I tried my best
They'll be all right.
to influence it.
Um,
In parting,
Go on.
in parting,
Oh,
one of the other things I wanted to say, not wishing to gloss over that very profound thing that you talked about
no,
there,
no,
which
no.
I'm sure we'll come back to at another time, is how many types, how many varieties of avocado are there? Do you think?
I spent time working in Panama and working with a guy who had a avocado farm, and
Oh wow! Well,
it was.
you
I mean,
you 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 are
this. Oh my god! As the answer to your question, I have no idea. I'm just reminiscing about the best avocados I've ever eaten.
Most well, actually, see, this is genius because I didn't actually know this. Because I was also lamenting this idea, this notion about thinking about what shapes our lives, what really does shape our lives, and what shapes our lives are experiences, right?
Yeah,
So, what are the things? What are the big things that are really there that help us shape our experiences? And I was thinking, surely one of them is the supermarket.
oh man, yeah,
Because on one side, right, it's an immensely liberating place because you get runner beans from Egypt in January and whatever, you get access to all of these things that you would not ordinarily gain access to, and more and more so. So on the one side, it's incredible, but everything's got this balance, hasn't it? You
yeah,
know, and the balance is maybe nutrient density levels because they've been aggressively farmed and the amount of pesticides and all this, whatever. But the other one is like the exposure to what we believe, what the diversity of foods, the diversity of produce that's actually out there. And so, like, if I think about avocado, there are two avocados that you genuinely see. One's the Hass avocado, and the other one that looks like a proper pear thing.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, both of them have got pretty similar experiences, from the sort of the gastronomic point of view, and yet there are around just sort of accessibly at least 23 varieties of avocado that are farmed that the obnoxious collective called humanity consumes, right? and when I was looking at these things and looking at the description of the flavor profiles of avocado, and you are a better place to talk about this than me, but some of them they talk about, very much like the Hass avocado, and some of them they talk about, fruity, sweeter flesh, buttery feel, and I was going, fuck, I want to try that avocado, but where do you get that from? And then you kind of realize that sort of what I believe an avocado has been dictated, shaped by, molded by the experience that I'm given through a privilege of having a supermarket and global supply chain. Because without either of those two things, I wouldn't even care about an avocado.
No.
So it's like a slightly double-edged sword, really, in that sense, about saying, well, but the intrigue for me, the interesting thing for me is that on the one side, these places, supermarkets in this particular case, actually gives us a great benefit, and in other places, it removes something from us as well. It narrows our perspective, it narrows our focus, it narrows our awareness and our understanding. Maybe it's a stretch.
No. But what do you mean? I don't get the remove bit. Is that because it's all on our doorstep, or?
Well, because we talk to most people who haven't been in Panama and experienced breadth of avocados. How many different avocado varieties are there? I was hoping you would say 1, 2, maybe max.
Oh God, no! I have no idea. I would have said I would have just said 4 or 5 just to hedge my bet statistically.
Well, there we
I
go.
have no idea. I wasn't paying any attention to avocados. You'd bring in like a basket of avocados every day and play football with them, but there was no shortage of avocados. But they were very tasty. Anyway, okay.
Yeah. So remove in the sense that it shapes our perception of the world so much that we're not even aware. I mean, why would we? We're not really aware that there are 23 varieties of avocado. There are 29 varieties of potato.
Are there?
The number of berries, the number of berries that exist. For like even indigenous to the UK that we just stuff our face with, are absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
Right? How many berries do we know? And you go, raspberry, strawberry, blackberry, blueberry, and all this kind of stuff.
I've got raspberries from Morocco here right now.
Well, congratulations! Yeah, exactly. And classic case in point. I mean, we're growing mulberries and loganberries, right? Yeah. And I can tell you, they are stunningly delicious. And one of the reasons why we end up with the produce that we end up with is because typically it's the produce that's easier to farm, easy to eat, less spoilage, less waste, easier to get to the customer without damage. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the most incredibly vibrant, beautiful experience. And so it's been a revelation to me, just kind of going, crumbs, look at all these different types of berries that you can grow in the UK, and they're amazing, absolutely amazing. I've got a loganberry bush is absolutely teeming with loganberries, and they are stunning, and mulberries as well.
So, and this is for another time because we should go now. But the
Am I boring you?
What? Sorry.
Am I boring you?
No. I've got to go in a minute and do something. But the fact that the world is, I think about this quite a lot, as one of the benefits of deglobalization, which is obviously going on at the minute, and then breakdown of supply chains, and combined with climate, the impact of, and we can talk about this ad nauseum, the impact of climate change, for whatever's causing the climate change, then we might end up having less raspberries from Morocco and less avocado. So we're decentralized as an island, and we have to eat what we can grow at the time of year, and or with the type of technology that enables us to grow. And I'd just be fascinated to, see what we'd end up with. And I'm imagining we'd start looking, as you say, more sort of to our existing species, and discovering so many of them. I mean, I'm fascinated by mushrooms. I mean, not that much, otherwise I would have done something about it. But I love eating them. But I know people who like, we've got buckets and they've got mushrooms growing out the side of them, and all
right.
And it's like a freaking dark art, and the mushrooms just their tendrils run throughout the forest, and basically like the PCB board of the forest or something. I don't know, but we should probably look into it. But I'd love to be in a position where I can't go to Morrison's and buy whatever I want at any point. Instead, I have to get off my arse and grow it myself.
Indeed. And on that note, we'll talk about this book
What is it?
another time. The Secret Life of Plants.
Oh,
Because you
excellent.
talk about plant communication and things like this. This stuff in here literally blow your mind.
Okay, I
Yeah.
shall read it. So
Indeed.
I was just
Good.
thinking, what we could do as a wrap up on each week. We could go book of the week or something.
Book, yeah, perhaps book of the week.
But
Book of
we
the week,
can
Secret Life of Plants, because it
Secret
ties
Life
into
of
things.
Plants.
So I mean, in summary, what have we learned today? We kind of learned through this Wittering process that we are fairly different in terms of our response to stress. That type of stress, that type of altercation, that you're seeking and looking for these these
I
incidents.
like near death experiences,
Yeah,
to be honest.
yeah,
But
and
I don't want to die.
that we don't know even some of the basic fundamentals of how our planet actually works.
Okay,
So
good.
so the idea that we're looking to colonize Mars, and you know how your fucking ocean operates. I mean, it just seems bizarre. It's totally bizarre to me. That that the idea of stasis is the thing that we always want to achieve, but actually we don't.
Good.
Is quite a fascinating thing.
And 20
And we need to be,
avocado.
and we can be more aware of how the systems that operate in our lives actually seek to kind of box us in some respects, in a good way. But just being aware of the limitation of what it's gives us or provides us with, and how that limits us, I think also may give us an opportunity to do some amazing exploration, but without actually having to venture too far.
Okay, very
Maybe.
good. That's a very good wrap up. Well done.
Thank you.
Right. Well,
Till next time.
let's call it. See you soon.
Enjoy.
Cheers, brother. Bye.